Streaming giant Netflix beat market expectations overnight by adding more than twice as many new subscribers than expected during the third quarter. Joining me now is Josh Gilbert, market analyst with eToro. Josh, thanks for your time today. So about 2.4 million new subscribers in the quarter. This looks like a pretty strong bounce back for the company that's really struggled in the first half of the financial year.
Yeah, exactly that, Ed. And I think you sort of said it there. It has had a really difficult start to 2022. It was obviously the first time in its history that it saw negative subscriber growth. And this is a huge bounce back, and that's down to just simply content. It sounds obvious, but we had that sort of lack of content coming through at the sort of start of 2022. And other than sort of Squid Game, there wasn't a lot for users to sort of watch. And now they've sort of bounced back with the likes of sort of Cobra Kai. They had Stranger Things in that time as well. And that's why we've seen this sort of huge subscriber beat, and hopefully will sort of help turn Netflix's sort of torrid year around.
Yeah, another really popular program's Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. So how important is it for Netflix to just keep coming up and pushing out these new ideas and programs?
Yeah, content is huge, especially with competition so rife in the marketplace at the moment. If you think about Disney Plus and sort of the year that they've had, it's been exceptional. Then we can add in names like sort of Stan here in Australia, Paramount Plus, etc. So they've got to stay on top of their game. But obviously, content comes with a cost. This top content comes with a huge price tag, and to keep doing that, that's going to at some point affect revenue and affect earnings, and that has happened over time. And that's what I think was probably the only sort of bad takeaway from this report, was that the guidance that we did have going into sort of Q4 was that earnings per share didn't quite meet Wall Street's expectations. So I think that sort of tells us that, you know, this content is going to come at a cost over time, but importantly, they're sort of back to where they should be. Not exactly in the same growth path that they were previously, but they're on a positive trajectory once again.
Yeah, and what do you make of Netflix's new strategy to offer cheaper subscriptions, but they include ads as well?
Yeah, look, I think this is in history, probably never seen anything like this. We've gone from one of the biggest media companies in the world, going from a completely sort of ad-free revenue model to now going to something where you're having to pay to obviously watch adverts, basically. I think this is going to be a huge pull for marketeers to be able to put your brand in front of the sort of the living room of consumers that are ultimately binging on these series. I think that's going to be huge, and I think that's going to have a huge impact on Netflix's revenue over time. I think it's going to take obviously a fair bit of time to implement that. Obviously, we're probably not going to see that effect on revenue until sort of 2023. But I think ultimately this will have a big impact and could help sort of push growth moving forward, and could be a key driver for them in the future.
Yeah, you think back to 4 or 5 years ago, Netflix was really one of the only companies out there offering streaming services, but now competition's getting super, super tight. So just how tough a market is it at the moment for streamers?
Yeah, it really is tough, and when we add in the likes of the cost of living pressures, ultimately streaming services aren't at the top of everyone's list, especially when we think to sort of Europe. We've got an energy crisis going on there. Food prices are obviously going through the roof, so even $15 a month to pay on a Netflix subscription is not on the essentials list. So the fact that they've sort of come out with this sort of net addition of new subscribers is really big in this environment, and again, that competition thrown in there as well means that this market is just really difficult. And then when you throw in something like Disney Plus that have, much bigger content slate, a much broader range, especially when we think about things like ESPN that they have the access to. And I think sports streaming is also now a huge part of that. And that's something that Netflix doesn't have on their content slate. So it's not going to be, an easy ride for Netflix. It's not going to be all rosy, but this is going to certainly be a positive report for investors. And I think they're going to be breathing a sigh of relief.
Well, Josh Gilbert, market analyst at eToro, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Ed.